If you're watching this or listening to it, I'm really glad you're here. And in a way, you're kind of my first guest. I wanted to start with a simple idea that has quietly shaped how I see conversations, conflict, and even growth. To me, yes and starts with acknowledgement. It means recognizing that people go through hard things, real things, painful things, and that the way you experience those things, the way you see them, the way they live inside you, that is your reality. In discussions or disagreements, or when we experience something difficult, people often respond with, but. Think about a time when someone responded to something you said like this. That's true, but. Or how about, you did a great job, but. Or even someone trying to help. That was hard, but you should be grateful. How did you feel when they said, but? Even when it's well-intentioned, that word can feel jarring. It can feel like what came before didn't really count. We sometimes call that the but sweep. It sweeps away the things that were said before that, and it can be very invalidating. Yes and does something different. Yes and says your experience counts. Yes, that was difficult. Yes, that shaped you. Yes, your perspective is valid and true to you. And there may still be another chapter ahead. And there might be hope for what comes next. And there may be something you can build from here. And your story isn't over yet. Yes and begins with validation. It recognizes that people experience real hardship and that their perspective is not something to debate away. It is their reality. Only after that acknowledgement do we look forward, not to minimize the past, but to ask what might be possible next. We build on that principle, also borrowing from improv comedy. I still vividly remember watching Whose Line Is It Anyway? And being amazed at the skill of the comedians to keep the story going, play off each other, keep it so smooth and natural and hilarious. One of the core rules of improv comedy is that you can never say no. Saying no shuts the story down, doesn't allow for the creativity to continue flowing. Saying no is usually about fear of looking dumb, fear of losing control. Saying yes keeps it alive and allows it to evolve. So the idea is that you have to say yes to whatever wild, unexpected things show up, and then add to it, build on it. That's how creativity, connection, and even joy show up in the middle of chaos. In a lot of ways, life feels like improv. We don't get a script, we don't get to plan all the plot twists or veto the unexpected returns. Pain or conflict in real life elicits a response from us. We will experience real emotions. And then what next? Do we respond with fear, keeping us stuck in an endless loop of wallowing in pain? Or can we flip that response, acknowledge how we feel, and choose something different? Yes and becomes a way to validate the emotions of your story and move forward, instead of staying in our pain or suffering or struggle. An idea that has been more widely discussed and popularized in recent years is the concept of validating someone's perspective. Initially, I felt unsure how to validate someone when I didn't necessarily agree with them or I saw things differently. I've learned this most poignantly with my sweet wife. She's had to remind me countless times that although I'm a lawyer, I shouldn't cross-examine her in a disagreement. When we've had hard conversations in the past, my training kicks in and I'll look to attack the other side, point out the flaws and fallacies of that position and prove I'm right. In those moments, I felt frustration, like I just need to get my point across and she would see how right I really was. I'll let you guess how far that got me. Validating someone and being a peacemaker doesn't mean avoiding disagreement, going along to get along, or giving up what you believe. It is about being curious instead of being judgmental, listening before responding, helping people feel heard before offering your own perspective. You can also disagree without being disagreeable. In fact, the most meaningful conversations often begin there. When we acknowledge that someone else has a different perspective, validate that they do actually feel the way they do, and see it the way they see it, we unlock the possibility to provide our own unique perspective. Thankfully, my wife is patient with me as I keep working to communicate more effectively. As I made the shift to actively listening for understanding, trying to validate her perspective and emotions, my eyes were opened. Her responses made more sense. Her perspective was more clear to me. And I've been able to, at times, effectively communicate my perspective as well. When I've reflected on my values of having courage and kindness and being a peacemaker, my understanding of validation has evolved. I think the world could use more of that right now. Less division, less shouting past each other and nameless, faceless online fighting, more curiosity, kindness, and empathy. And empathy requires effort. It requires caring enough to ask where someone came from, what shaped them, what they've carried. Only then can real connection happen. That's a big part of what this podcast is about. This podcast isn't designed to fix people, argue sides, or pretend that life is easy. It is instead trying to create space, offer perspective, and invite growth. So why am I doing this? To inspire others to transcend their trials and build their best life. And why me? I love talking to people. I love learning from them. I'm an external processor, so conversations is part of how I learn. I've wanted to start a podcast for a couple of years, but I've always had reasons not to. Not enough time, not enough expertise, not the perfect setup. As this year came to a close and I started thinking about what I wanted next, this idea kept coming back. And eventually I just asked myself, why not me? Why not now? So I decided to start, imperfectly, willing to learn as I go. My goal with this podcast is to have fun, to nerd out on Disney, movies, fantasy novels, discuss meaningful ideas, and to bring something hopeful and uplifting into the world. And I also want it to be practical. Feeling inspired in the moment is great. I also want this to lead to lasting change and action. We'll talk about life, leadership, parenting, relationships, and navigating hard seasons. Often we'll do that through stories. Movies, shows, and places like Disney aren't just escapism. Great storytelling has always carried meaning. Stories help us see things we couldn't see before. They teach lessons, shift perspective, and let us pull out what resonates personally based on our own experiences. What one person takes from a story might be completely different from what someone else sees. That's kind of the point. This podcast is for a lot of people. Parents who are trying to juggle work and home, for those going through divorce, recovering from it, or just trying to raise kids in a complicated world. For anyone who has been through